Sunday mornings always started the same way for me. I'd wake up early, not because I had to, but because my body had been trained by a decade of early meetings and weekend catch-up. I liked the quiet, the stillness before the world got moving. There was comfort in the routine. Grind the beans, fill the kettle, pick the mug with the chip on the rim, the one Lauren hated but never threw away. I'd pour myself a coffee, step out into the backyard barefoot, and let the hose run while I checked the plants. The tomatoes were coming in slow this year, but I didn't mind. Lauren was in San Diego that weekend, at one of those corporate retreats her company hosted every summer. It was supposed to be a mix of leadership seminars and networking mixers, the kind of thing where buzzwords get tossed around more than actual ideas. She called it Strategic Alignment Week, and I didn't question it. She'd earned her place, worked hard. People respected her. I did too. Or at least, I thought I did. Thought I knew her. The day was already heating up when I sat down on the patio and opened my phone. I scrolled through emails first, then news, then landed, as one does, on Instagram. I was halfway through mindlessly tapping when I saw it. Lauren, sitting on another man's lap. I paused, my thumb frozen mid-scroll. I actually blinked, like I had misread the image. But no, it was her. My wife. Dressed in something casual, but fitted. The kind of outfit she only wore when she wanted to feel confident. Her hair was down, wavy, the way I always liked it. Except this time, she wasn't beside me. She was curled up against someone else. A man I barely recognized. Jason. That's what the caption said, anyway. My person. Hashtag more than work. His name rang a bell. I remembered her mentioning a Jason once or twice. Some guy on her team, junior level, just got promoted. Really sharp, she'd said one night after dinner. Has potential. That was it. Nothing that stood out. Definitely not something that would lead me to think she'd be like that with him. But here they were. His arm was around her waist, pulling her close. Her face was nestled into his neck, like they were posing for a Christmas card. And they were smiling, not grinning for the camera, but smiling like people who felt safe. Comfortable. Int asterisk mate. Both held glasses of rose, raised just slightly toward the camera, like they were toasting something. Something private. My heart started pounding. I didn't know what I was looking at, but it felt wrong. I scrolled up to double check. Yeah, this was Lauren's profile. And the post? It was public. Not close friends. Not a story that would disappear. A permanent, out in the open post. It had been up for 21 minutes. I clicked the like count. A bunch of names from her company, directors, assistants, junior analysts, all hearting the photo. The comments made my stomach churn. You two, smiling face with hard eyes. Finally, cutest work couple. Power duo collision revolving hearts. I refreshed the page. Gone. Just like that. The post had vanished. Replaced a few minutes later with a bland, professional group sh*t. Her, Jason, and 3 others I didn't recognize. Standing in front of some hotel event backdrop. No touching, no wine, no caption. Just tagged. Hashtag retreat weekend, hashtag growth mindset. But the damage was already done. Because while I saw it late, someone else had seen it first. HR. A friend of mine, Josh, who works in Lauren's company but in a totally different department, texted me later that day. No greeting. Just a *T and a short message. You okay? I didn't answer right away. I just stared at the image. The original photo. Still on his phone. By the time I called him back, he told me what I'd feared. That the post had been *Ted and shared internally within minutes. Apparently, someone on the executive team flagged it. There were whispers of policy violations and favoritism. HR had already opened an ethics inquiry. And from what Josh said, Jason was technically a direct report, meaning Lauren had been his mentor. She'd even signed off on his last promotion. I didn't even know how to respond. I just mumbled something like, "Thanks, man," and hung up. My hands were shaking. I stared out at the garden, at the tomato vines curling against the trellis. I felt like the air had been *ket out of the morning. She had no idea. Lauren had no clue what was coming. She hadn't called. Hadn't texted. I checked again. The group photo was still up. Likes piling up. But that first post? It had already made its rounds. It was burned into memory. Into systems. Into *TS and Slack messages, and probably whispered conversations at the hotel bar. And me? I was the last to know. I sat there for a while, trying to convince myself that maybe it was innocent. Maybe they were just close friends. Maybe the caption was sarcastic. But then I remembered the glass of wine, the way she leaned into him, the way his fingers rested lightly on her hip, like someone who knew what she felt like. No, that wasn't nothing. That wasn't harmless. And it wasn't just a moment. It was a window into something I hadn't wanted to see, into something that had probably been happening for a long time. It's wild how clear things get when you finally look backward. The day I saw that Instagram post, it was like a dam broke in my brain. I couldn't unsee it. Not just the photo, but everything that had come before it. The months, maybe even years, of little moments I had shrugged off. Things I told myself were just quirks, or just her decompressing from work. But they weren't. They were signs. Warnings. I just didn't want to believe them. And now? I couldn't stop seeing them. The late-night calls in the garage were the first thing that came back to me. That started maybe 6 months ago. Lauren would get up from the couch and say, "Hey, sorry, team check-in, West Coast time zone," and head out to the garage with her AirPods in. She used to take those calls at her desk in the office, sometimes right in the living room. But lately, it was like she needed isolation. Or secrecy. I remember once I walked into the garage to grab a wrench. I'd forgotten she was on a call, and she jumped like I'd caught her stealing something. Her laptop was angled away from me. She scrambled to hit mute and gave me this forced smile, waving me off like I was interrupting a TED Talk. I didn't think much of it at the time. I just said, "Sorry," and backed out. Now I know. That wasn't a team check-in. Or if it was, it wasn't about spreadsheets. Then there was her phone. Locked more often. Notifications silenced. Face down on the table, screen turned away from me like it was staring into the wall instead of either of us. She started carrying it everywhere, to the bathroom, to the laundry room, even out to get the mail. One time, I picked it up because it was ringing, and she snatched it out of my hands like I was holding a grenade. "Don't touch my phone," she said sharply, then caught herself. "Sorry, it's just work stuff." Work stuff. That was always the umbrella she hid under. It covered everything. The new clothes, the sudden fitness obsession, the upgraded skincare routine. A few months back, she started buying dresses I hadn't seen before, trying them on in front of the mirror, but never wearing them out with me. I remember complimenting one, a navy blue wrap dress that hugged her waist just right, and she smiled, but it wasn't warm. It was guarded, like she didn't want the compliment coming from me. "They're for work events," she'd say. "Presenting, you know? Got to look sharp." She'd always been professional, but this was something else. Every outfit started to feel curated for someone else's eyes, someone who wasn't me. She stopped asking what I thought, stopped caring whether I noticed. And then the earbuds. At first, I thought she just liked music while cleaning or cooking. But I'd walk past her and realize she wasn't listening to music. She was talking, whispering. And if I got too close, she'd pause whatever she was listening to and look at me like I'd stepped on something sacred. I once asked, "Who are you talking to?" She said, "Just podcasts." Podcasts don't answer back. There was one night. I remember this vividly now, when I came home from the hardware store and found her standing in the kitchen, flushed, like she'd just run a mile. Her phone was on the counter, screen black, but I could see she had a smile that didn't match her mood. I asked her what was up, and she said, "Oh, nothing. Just thinking about work." That's when it started to hit me that she wasn't just hiding something. She was becoming someone else around me. Distant. Clinical. Like a roommate you nod to in passing. We still had dinner. Still did chores. Still talked about our schedules. But the softness had vanished. The shared glances, the inside jokes, gone. Our physical life? I couldn't even remember the last time we were in *mate. That part of our marriage had gone cold long before the post, but I chalked it up to stress. I asked if she wanted to talk about it once, and she brushed me off. "It's not you," she said. "I'm just tired. I'm managing so much right now." I believed her. God help me, I believed her. But the turning point, the moment I now realize should have been the alarm bell, was the box of condoms. It was in her glove compartment. That day, she'd asked me to take her car in for an oil change. I opened the glove box to grab the registration, and there it was, a fresh box, unopened. Not hidden deep in the back. Just sitting there, right on top of the documents. Like she wasn't even trying to hide it. My mind blanked. We hadn't used condoms in years. We'd had the conversation about switching to other birth control methods ages ago. I stared at that box for a full minute before shutting the glove compartment and pretending I hadn't seen it. When she came home, I said nothing. Now I think back to that moment with a mix of disbelief and shame. I should have said something. I should have asked. But I was scared. Scared of confirming what I already suspected. Scared of hearing her say it out loud. Because once she did, I'd never be able to pretend again. Instead, I told myself a story. Maybe she picked them up for a friend. Maybe they were left over from before. Maybe she's just being cautious in case we ever. But I couldn't finish that sentence. Not even in my own head. From that point on, everything I saw, I questioned. Her schedule changed. She started leaving earlier, coming home later. Some nights, she'd say she was going out for drinks with coworkers. Always in groups. Always team bonding. But when I asked who was there, the list got fuzzy. Just the usual crew, she'd say. Or, you wouldn't know them. I started noticing her getting dressed with a little more purpose. Not always S*XY, but curated. Like someone who wanted to look effortlessly attractive without looking like they were trying. Casual elegance. Perfectly undone. I remember one night she came home with a tote bag full of groceries. Except we hadn't run out of anything. I asked her why she stopped at the store. Oh, just felt like picking up a few things, she said. The receipt was still in the bag. It was all wine and snacks. Not even real groceries. A date night grocery haul. But we hadn't had a date night in over 3 months. And then there was Jason. I started piecing together the pattern. He was mentioned more. Slipped into casual stories. Jason said the funniest thing today. Or Jason's presentation totally bombed. Poor guy. Just enough to normalize his name. So I wouldn't blink when she brought him up later. I even remember a weird moment when I walked past her open laptop and saw a Slack chat pop up. It said, "Haha, your terrible smirking face." No context. No name. But the tone was unmistakable. Flirty. Int asterisk mate. That emoji was doing a lot of heavy lifting. She shut the laptop quickly and said, "Work drama. Nothing serious." Sure. Everything was nothing serious. Until it was. Until that post, that 10-second glimpse into whatever double life she was living, ripped the whole curtain down. And suddenly, every moment I had dismissed became undeniable. This wasn't a one-time lapse in judgment. This was something that had been growing. A rot. Quiet. Slow. But always there, just beneath the surface. She'd built a second reality while I stayed loyal in the first. And the worst part? She still hadn't said a word. There's something eerie about watching a truth you've dreaded crawl into the light. It doesn't burst in. It doesn't announce itself. It trickles, slowly, cruelly, through people, through chance conversations, through details you never thought mattered. And when it finally stands in front of you, undeniable, it doesn't bring relief. Just clarity. Cold, sharp, and irreversible. For me, that moment came on a Thursday afternoon. I was at a coffee shop just outside of Austin, half working, half trying to forget what I couldn't stop thinking about. That photo. The caption. Her face nestled into his neck. I still hadn't talked to Lauren. She was flying back from San Diego that night. I hadn't told her I saw the post. Hadn't said a word about Jason. I didn't know what I would say. Part of me wanted to scream. Another part wanted to pretend I hadn't seen it at all. But mostly, I was trying to hold myself together for one more hour, one more day, until I had something concrete. Something undeniable. That's when it came. It wasn't Lauren who confirmed anything. It was someone else entirely. I was sitting by the window, staring at my untouched Americano, when I ran into a guy named Nolan. Not a close friend, but someone I knew through work. We'd bumped into each other at corporate events and networking mixers. Solid guy. We started talking, small talk at first, how business was going, how miserable the heat had been. Then he mentioned his younger brother. He just flew back in from some company retreat in California, Nolan said, taking a sip of his coffee. Said it was this big leadership thing with trust falls and wine tastings. Thought he was too cool for it, but now he won't stop talking about it. I laughed a little. Let me guess, fancy name badges and breakout sessions about synergy? Exactly, Nolan said. But here's the weird part. He said it wasn't the workshops that got people talking. It was two people acting like they were on a honeymoon. Said it was all anyone could focus on. I didn't breathe. I didn't blink. What do you mean? I asked, trying to keep my voice even. Nolan chuckled. Some guy named Jason. And a woman named Lauren, I think. They weren't exactly subtle. It felt like a freight train hit my chest. They worked together? I asked. The words barely came out. Apparently. Jason's kind of junior, and Lauren's, well, not, Nolan said, raising an eyebrow. My brother said they checked into the hotel together. Shared every meal. held hands at breakfast. He swears they were sitting in each other's laps on the shuttle back from a winery. Said people were taking pictures, laughing about how HR was going to have a field day. I looked down, gripping the edge of the table so tightly my knuckles turned white. That was my wife? I said quietly. Nolan froze. Wait, what? Lauren, that's my wife. His face went pale. Adam, I had no idea. I thought, man, I'm so sorry. I wouldn't have said anything if. No, I interrupted. Don't apologize. You just told me the truth. You did more for me in 5 minutes than she's done in months. Nolan looked genuinely shaken. He kept saying sorry, asking if I was okay. I told him I was fine, but I wasn't. I was far from it. I felt like I was suspended between two worlds. One where Lauren was still the woman I'd built a life with, and one where she'd become a stranger I couldn't trust to tell me what time it was. I drove home in silence. No music, no calls, just the sound of my own breath, ragged and uneven. By the time I pulled into the driveway, I knew 2 things for sure. 1, Lauren had lied. 2, I wasn't crazy. The next day, more information rolled in. Almost like fate had decided to stop holding back. Josh, the same guy who had texted me the *T of the post, called again. This time, he didn't sound casual. HR's involved, he said. It's official. I didn't say anything. Just waited. Apparently, someone sent in a few photos from the retreat. And a video. I don't know who leaked them, but it's bad, man. They're reviewing everything. Emails, Slack messages. It's not just gossip anymore. It's an investigation. What are they looking for? I asked, though I already knew. Undisclosed relationships. Abuse of influence. She was on the promotion committee for Jason's role, right? I closed my eyes. Yeah, she was. Josh sighed. Then this isn't just a scandal. It's a violation. Company policy's strict. Supervisors and direct reports have to disclose relationships. Lauren didn't. Jason didn't. They're both in trouble. That was the moment it fully sank in. This wasn't just about a marriage falling apart. This wasn't just about me. Lauren had gambled with everything. Her career, her credibility, her future, all for a guy she used to call a junior analyst with potential. And she didn't even bother to tell me. I started digging then. I checked LinkedIn, internal directories, even old calendar events. Jason's promotion had come just 3 months ago. The same week Lauren and I had one of the worst fights we'd ever had. The one where she told me she felt trapped in routine. I just need space, she had said. Yeah, she needed space, all right. Enough space to build a second life inside the ruins of our first. What hurt the most wasn't the affair, not exactly. It was how easily it all unraveled once I stopped making excuses. Like every part of the story was just waiting to be noticed. Like I had been the only one clinging to the fiction. I don't know what I was expecting when Lauren came home that night. Maybe an apology, maybe panic. But she was calm. She acted like nothing had happened. She walked into the house, dropped her bag, and smiled. Hey, she said. Missed you. I didn't respond. I just watched her walk through the living room, pouring herself a glass of water like she hadn't set off a bomb in both our lives. You good? She asked, noticing my silence. I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt something inside me harden. I didn't confront her then. I didn't explode or cry or beg. I let her talk. Let her explain her week. I even nodded in the right places. But inside, I was already gone. Because now, I had confirmation. Proof. A pattern. Testimony. *TS. Corporate witnesses. HR transcripts. And soon, consequences. The truth was no longer a suspicion. It was a matter of record. There was no fight. No slammed doors. No screaming matches. No pleading. No affair confession stammered through tears. The kind of breakdown you see in movies never came. Just silence. A deep, echoing kind of silence that wrapped itself around the house like a thick winter fog. I didn't plan it that way. I didn't sit down and think, this is how I'll do it. It just started happening. After the confirmation, after the conversations with Nolan and Josh, the HR Whisper Network, the timeline I had mentally stitched together like a prosecutor prepping a closing argument. I came to a decision. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of watching me fall apart. She didn't deserve my rage. She didn't even deserve my reaction. So I shifted. Quietly. Methodically. The day after Lauren got back from the retreat, I started going through every account with our names on it. Bank statements, investment portfolios, credit cards. I opened spreadsheets, created tabs, calculated line by line exactly what we had, what I contributed, what was joint, what was mine. It was like I was building a case. Not against her. Against denial. The numbers didn't lie. Just like she hadn't, at least not out loud. We'd bought the house 5 years ago, but it was in my name, something we'd agreed on when we moved in, since I had more equity and a stronger credit score at the time. I'd been the one paying the mortgage every month. I handled the property taxes, the home insurance, the maintenance. She covered groceries, occasional utilities. Her income wasn't small, but it wasn't the foundation. That was me. And I realized, slowly, that I could protect myself. I wasn't trapped. So I began separating. I started by calling the bank and removing her as an authorized user on my personal checking. Then the brokerage accounts. Then the auto insurance. Our shared savings. I moved my half to a new account under my name. I left her portion untouched. I wasn't trying to hurt her. I was just done. She didn't notice. Or maybe she did, and she just didn't know what it meant. Around the house, I stayed polite. Calm. We still ate dinner at the same table, though most nights I just pushed food around my plate. She'd ask how work was. I'd say busy. She'd ask if I wanted to watch something. I'd say, maybe later. Meanwhile, I boxed up her belongings. Not everything. Just what was clearly hers. Clothes, makeup, books she only ever read once. The designer bags she stopped using when she started bringing that new canvas tote everywhere. I stacked the boxes in the guest bedroom. She didn't go in there often. I figured she'd find them when she needed to. One morning while she was at work, I changed the locks. I didn't want it to feel dramatic. Just protective, like a fire door closing quietly in the background of a burning building. And then there was the folder. I bought it the same day I visited a lawyer. I'd researched firms for hours. I wanted someone calm, precise. Someone who wouldn't treat this like drama, but like business. Because that's what it had become, a business exit. The lawyer I met with, a woman named Renee, didn't flinch when I told her everything. She asked for documentation. I gave her dates, *TS, statements. I gave her the names of people who'd confirmed what I already knew. She asked, "Do you want to pursue spousal misconduct?" I said no. "I don't want vengeance," I told her. "I just want out. Clean." She nodded and gave me a file, Dissolution of Marriage. I signed where she pointed. Gave her the last 5 years of our financial life in a single Dropbox folder. And then I went home and printed everything I needed to give Lauren. I put it all in that beige folder, the one that sat, quiet and unassuming, on the guest bed next to her boxed-up life. Inside, I included a complete breakdown of our assets and how they'd be divided. Signed divorce papers. A note. No drama. No fight. We're done. Please review and sign. That was it. No letter. No accusation. No listing of sins. I didn't need to explain. She knew. She just didn't know that I knew. Yet, the night I left the folder on the bed, I didn't sleep. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. There's a kind of ache that comes from loving someone too long, past the expiration date, past the betrayals, past your own ability to pretend. That's what I was lying with. That ache. When I heard her car pull into the driveway the next afternoon, I was already in the kitchen, pretending to read. She walked in like it was any other day, heels clicking against the tile, dropping her keys into the bowl by the door. She kissed me on the cheek. "Hey, babe." I nodded. "Hey." I watched her walk upstairs. 10 minutes later, she opened the guest room door. 15 seconds after that, the house went silent. Not a word. Not a scream. Not even a whisper. I sat perfectly still, listening to that quiet. The kind that only comes when someone realizes, too late, that the story has already ended. She didn't come downstairs for a while. When she did, her eyes were red, but she wasn't crying. She looked like someone who wanted to scream, but couldn't find the air. "Adam," she said softly. "Can we talk?" I looked at her and said, just as softly, "No." I didn't shout. I didn't accuse. I didn't ask how she could do it, or why. Because I didn't care anymore. I wasn't curious. I wasn't even angry. I was finished. She sat across from me at the table, her hands shaking. I watched her glance toward the folder again, like maybe if she stared at it long enough, it would turn back into a vacation brochure or a grocery list. "It's not what you think," she tried. I just looked at her. "No," I said. "It's exactly what I think." And I stood up and walked outside. I watered the grass. Not because it needed it, because I needed to. The hose hissed softly in my hand, and I let the sound drown out whatever was happening behind me. Whatever excuses or apologies or late realizations were beginning to bloom in her mind. None of them mattered now. I'd already made peace with the idea that the woman I married no longer existed. She'd been replaced by someone who could look me in the eye for months while building a life with someone else. Who could post a photo like that in the open, caption it with words she used to say to me, and act like there'd be no fallout. But there was fallout. She just hadn't seen it until now. I stayed outside until the sun dipped behind the trees. The sky turned that soft pink-orange Lauren used to take pictures of. I didn't take any photos. I just watched it fade. Later, I walked back in. She wasn't on the couch. The guest room door was closed. The folder was gone. The house was still. And for the first time in months, so was I. Lauren left early the next morning. Not just emotionally, physically. I heard the creak of the front door around 6:15 a.m., the barely audible shuffle of heels across hardwood. She didn't say goodbye. Didn't peek her head into the bedroom. Didn't try one last Hail Mary. I stayed in bed, listening. Then I got up and made coffee. There was nothing left to say between us. Everything that needed to be said was already printed, signed, and sealed inside that beige folder. The conversation she thought she was avoiding was already over. But while our marriage had ended with a quiet precision, what happened next, in her world, would be anything but quiet. I didn't know exactly how things would unfold at her company, only that they would. From what Josh had told me, the ethics team had already started collecting information. Photos, messages, calendar overlaps, evidence of travel and lodging, a full audit of their behavior, paper trail and all. And now that the post had gone public, even briefly, the conversation had left private speculation behind. It was a policy breach. A clear one. Lauren was a senior leader. Jason was a direct report. And while companies often look the other way on quiet office flings, this wasn't quiet. It was broadcast in high resolution with a wine glass in one hand and her arm wrapped around his neck in the other. I imagined her walking into the building, just as she always did, swiping her badge, nodding to security, carrying that leather bag with the silver trim she always kept perfectly polished. Maybe she still thought she could talk her way through this, that it would be a slap on the wrist, a sensitivity training, a strongly worded email. But I knew better. You don't get a gentle slap when you publicly call a subordinate my person, especially not when you're the one who signed their promotion 6 weeks earlier. It was around 10:30 when the call came. Not from Lauren. From Josh. She's in it, he said, voice low. Closed-door meeting. Legal, compliance, her director, and someone from the executive team. I think it's happening now. I just nodded, even though he couldn't see me. They pulled Jason out earlier, he added. I don't think he's coming back. I didn't ask for updates. Didn't beg for details. I just thanked him and hung up. Then I sat on the couch, sipping slowly, letting reality settle in. This was the part no one talks about, the ripple effect. The way betrayal starts in a bedroom, but eventually spills into boardrooms and inboxes and policy manuals. You can lie to your spouse. You can lie to yourself. But you can't lie to a compliance team that already has your messages time-stamped and printed in color. By noon, she still hadn't come home. I checked her location once, an old habit I hadn't realized was still enabled on my phone. She was still at the office. Midtown, sitting in the same building where she used to stay late, coaching junior talent, or finishing reports. I wondered how many of those nights were spent laughing across a desk with Jason, sharing stories and glances that never made it back to me. Around 3 p.m., Josh texted again. She's out. Just that. 2 words. That was how careers ended in the corporate world, not with screaming or cameras or grand exits. Just a short, sterile message and an HR escort to the elevator. I didn't hear from her until later that evening. I was outside again, trimming the hedges. There was something therapeutic about yard work, the clean lines, the sharp snaps of branches falling into the soil. Everything in the garden made sense. It didn't lie. It either grew or it didn't. That's when her car pulled up. I turned, slowly, wiping my hands on a towel. She sat there for a minute, engine off, not moving. I could see her through the windshield, still dressed in her usual office attire, blazer, blouse, slacks. But something about her posture was different. Smaller, caved in. She eventually stepped out, but didn't come toward me. Instead, she popped the trunk, pulled out a suitcase, and made her way to the door without saying a word. I stayed in the yard. A few minutes later, the guest room door shut again. That was her new base camp now. Not the master. Not the shared closet. Not the side of the bed she once called hers. She didn't bring up the divorce folder. She didn't bring up Jason. She didn't bring up the job. But I already knew what happened. Everyone did. That's how it works in companies like hers. News spreads through Slack channels and knowing glances. The company had scrubbed her name from the directory. Her email returned an out-of-office message. And by dinner, the LinkedIn profile that once read Senior Director, Leadership and Development was gone. She'd been erased. Later that night, she came down to the kitchen. I was at the sink, washing a few dishes, when I heard her behind me. "Adam," she said quietly. I didn't turn around. She waited. I'm not going to pretend like I didn't deserve this," she said, voice shaking. "I just wanted you to know that I..." "Don't," I interrupted. She went quiet. "You don't have to tell me anything," I said, still not facing her. "We're past that." She let out a breath. Not relief, more like surrender. "I lost everything today," she whispered. I dried my hands. "Not everything," I said calmly. "Just everything you were willing to risk." She didn't answer, just stood there, frozen, like she hadn't considered the full reach of her decisions until now. When I finally turned around, she looked small, not just physically, but existentially. Like someone who'd been holding up a version of herself for so long that she forgot how much it weighed. I didn't offer comfort. That wasn't my job anymore. Instead, I nodded once, turned off the lights, and walked past her toward the stairs. The next day, she packed another bag. Not all of her things, just enough for a week. I heard her making calls in the guest room, reaching out to colleagues, old mentors, probably even recruiters. But her voice was flat, like she knew none of them would touch her. Not now. By the end of the week, I received an email. It wasn't from Lauren. It was from HR, a courtesy notice. A clean, one-sentence update. Lauren C. is no longer with the company, effective immediately. No cause listed. No statement. Just finality. I forwarded it to my lawyer. She replied with a simple, "Understood. Let's proceed." Later that afternoon, I watched Lauren drive away. She didn't say goodbye this time either. No note. No lingering glance in the rearview mirror. Just tires on pavement and a car disappearing into traffic. And that was that. Her career, once meticulously built, all the speaking gigs, mentoring